Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. Let's finish Fukuoka. First up, the Yacht-Master. This is a 5-digit Yacht-Master, a discontinued platinum dial version, and these have doubled in price over the last couple of years. And it's a beautiful dial. It must have flakes of gold in there or something to give it that shimmering look like the Hulk. And Yacht-Masters are interesting. This is a 5-digit, but even the modern versions have sort of that transition feel because they have the cases of the 5-digit, but the maxi hands and the maxi dial of the modern pieces. This is a 6-digit version with the older movement. Aesthetically is almost the same as the modern one, except it doesn't have a little coronet at the 6. But if you've ever wondered what a colorful Submariner would look like, well, this is it. That's the whole point of the Yacht-Master. Rolex didn't want to mess with their icon, but they wanted to release, well, colorful versions of the Submariner, and that's what this watch is. When it comes to the modern pieces, they've got two steel versions, the blue dial like this one and the slate dial like the one on the left. Both versions are beautiful, but I'd have to go with the blue dial. Rolex calls it bright blue, and they call this one slate. And they used to call it rhodium. They changed the naming convention, but I don't think the color actually changed. The Yacht-Master line came out in 1992. Part of it is the Yacht-Master II, and this is a completely different watch from the Yacht-Master. This is a countdown chronograph. A lot of people think Rolex will discontinue this watch at some point. I don't think they will. If it happens, though, a lot of people think it's going to just shoot up in price, and it will on the gray market, but I don't think it'll ever be a watch people clamor for. And I think prices will come down pretty shortly after that. My evidence? This watch. The Turn-O-Graph, the father of all rotating bezel professional Rolex watches. And the king is dead. This line is dead. They don't make them anymore. And prices have gone up a little bit, but not as much as you'd think. And why? Is it because of the 36 millimeter size? That could be it. But it just goes to show you that if a model is unpopular, discontinuing it doesn't necessarily change that. Anyway, there are quite a few points against this watch. The 36 millimeter size doesn't appeal to a lot of people, and it's not a Datejust, it's not a professional watch. It kind of falls in this no man's land. And if you take what I think is the best of these last of the Turn-O-Graphs, then I think the blue dialed Yacht-Master is pretty much better in every way. Still, if this oddball, yet unique and incredibly important in Rolex history Turn-O-Graph is your thing, you might like the two-tone version. I like the bezels better on the 5 digits like this one than the last of the last 6 digits. The 34 millimeter Air King. The Air King has come a long way in terms of size and aesthetics, that's for sure. Now these old Air Kings could have been had for a couple thousand USD when I first got into watches, but they've gone up quite a bit. Too much for me. I think of those old prices and I can't stomach paying something like that new price. As much of a deal as it might seem to you if you've just gotten into watches. Yet another symbol of missing the boat and slight regret. The 36 millimeter Oyster Perpetual with a 369 dial. What a great watch to have in the collection, especially if you bought it back in the day, retail, when it was a lemon and nobody even cared about this. But you're never going to see another 369 dial Oyster Perpetual. What a cool watch. It's like a mesh between the Explorer and the Oyster Perpetual. Speaking of the Oyster Perpetual, here's a 36 millimeter version, and this is going for more than that previous 369 version. I think I'd be saving $1 and getting that discontinued version. But people here like new things, and I can understand wanting the latest and greatest. Now this is a pricey Oyster Perpetual. This is the 41 millimeter discontinued yellow dial. And I'm not much for the size, but I think the dial color is beautiful. You know, if you really want a yellow dial and you want to save $1, get a Hydronaut, reference number 89190, and you can get your yellow dial. And that'll be probably about $3,000 all in. But that's probably applying too much logic to one's desires, which often are pretty much illogical. But the question is, will you ever get out of this for what you paid for it? Like, are they going to go up in the future? I don't think they will. Two watches with a close association, the Milgauss on the left, the Air King on the right. That's an older Air King. It's been updated, and the Milgauss is going to be updated this year, almost certainly. And the question, will it get crown guards? The least desirable of the discontinued Milgauss watches, this of course doesn't have the green GV glass. I think if you're going to go for one of those more modern discontinued sans GV glass versions, the white dial one is the way to go. A couple of brand new modern 36mm Explorers on the left, the all steel version, on the right, the head scratching two-tone version. This red tag means the piece is reserved and somebody's on the fence thinking about buying this GMT-Master II root beer. Probably one of my favorite modern two-tone watches. In fact, it is. I don't think I'd be paying a premium for it, but I'd love to stumble upon this at an authorized dealer. A modern GMT Pepsi on an Oyster bracelet. These have really come down a lot recently. In USD, this is 20,000 USD. This is with tax. So if you were a tourist, you'd be paying 18K for this watch, which by Japanese standards is pretty low. Or you could save 1,500 USD and go for the slightly less popular BLNR. Now, of course, which is better is a matter of opinion, but generally speaking, this is the least popular of the current all-steel GMT Master IIs, and this is the most popular. It has dethroned the Pepsi, and this is going for just shy of 30,000 USD. Now, I remember when Pepsis were going 40,000+ USD, but everything's come down a bit, and the Japanese yen is a little weak at the moment. All right, back to Yacht-Masters. Now, these are the modern versions, and somebody's on the fence. It could be the same person, wants to see both, and after seeing them, make their choice. Now, if you look at the price, it looks like the slate dial is more desirable. I wouldn't have thought that, but that's what the price says. All right, we're going off the yacht, into the water, and deep. And this is a two-tone Sea Dweller, and is priced smack dab right in the middle between the BLNR and the BLRO. A couple more deep diving watches on the left, the 43mm Sea Dweller on the right, the Deep Sea at 44mm. Case-wise, they don't look that different, but I want to say the Deep Sea is quite a bit thicker. Here's the question. When it comes to the Deep Sea, are you paying less and getting more watch for your money? A brand new and modern 36mm Datejust on a Jubilee bracelet with a fluted bezel, the iconic iteration of this watch, down to the boring silver dial. I think much better dial options are out there. Well, hold on, let me clarify that. Sometimes the boring options, black dials, white dials, silver dials, what we think are boring are more long-term wearable, and that's something I really appreciate. You might not want a green watch all the time. The modern Air King with all of its improvements over the previous version, including the crown guards, the Lume 369, the new movement, and a lack of a Faraday cage, which makes it thinner, lighter, more wearable. A couple 41s, a Datejust on a Jubilee on the left, on the right an Oyster Perpetual. This kind of reminds me of ADs the way they used to be. About $1,000 used to get you that date complication, kind of like in this scenario. A white dial Explorer II. You can see the black dial version on the right is sold out. I used to hate this watch. I still like the 40mm version more, but I've come around to this watch and I understand the big, thick hands, and when you're on Mount Everest, it kind of makes sense. And I bet this glows like crazy at night. And we'll cap this store off with a trio of Daytonas. All right, this store had hardly anything, but I'll show you what they had. A 36mm two-tone Datejust, Jubilee bracelet, fluted bezel, champagne dial with diamonds. Not my cup of tea. Just a little footage from this store, a 36mm Tiffany blue dialed Oyster Perpetual. On the left, you can see that oyster quartz ticking away. And I was in this shop a couple of years ago, and I remember checking out an oyster quartz, and I think it must be the same watch. I seem to remember it had a Buckley dial like this one, so it must not have sold in these past couple of years. Now, in another video, a viewer called out an oyster quartz and said, "Hey, is that a fake Rolex? I see it ticking." And oyster quartzes were a thing back in the day. I mean, they don't make them anymore. But that's the issue with an oyster quartz. If you wear one, people are going to notice it. You're going to see somebody look down at your wrist and then look at you, and you're going to know what they're thinking. Still, I love the idea of a quartz Rolex watch, and it's one of those models I wish I had picked up back in the day when they were more affordable. But who cares about oyster quartz watches when back in the day you could have concentrated on something like this beautiful vintage no-date sub, tritium hands, tritium pip, tritium dial, plastic crystal. Beautiful example. No box, no papers, but beautiful piece. And we'll end it on one of my favorite neo-vintage pieces, a tritium 16600 Sea Dweller. Let me know which pieces you liked. You know, during this video, I think I betrayed a secret desire of mine, and that's to get a third hydronaut and have a yellow dial put in. You know, I'll put a thumbnail here, you can check it out, but I almost got a third hydronaut, and that would have been a fun project. I kind of wish I had done that. I wish I hadn't lost out on that auction. A yellow hydronaut, just what I need, right? Anyway, let me know what you think about the pieces in this video. Take care, thanks for watching, see you next time.